Have you always wanted to visit India, but the hassle of planning and the intensity of group schedules is putting you off? Hi, I'm Craig, owner and tour leader of Maharaja Tours. With 40 years experience travelling India, I curate stress-free luxury tours where you can expect top hotels, easy travel, excellent guides and delicious food. Visit my website www.maharajatours.co.nz and explore your options for touring incredible India.
We've got an issue here that I think to a lot of people may sound a bit dry, but it's really, really important. And this is a positive thing. So this government has started to look, along with ACT, at all of the silly regulations and how they can make things a lot easier for people. And one of the things that they have done, which sounds small but it's not, is to take off all of the restrictions around just putting a shed in your backyard. So a 10 to 30 metre shed is now allowable, and there is a considerable weight of evidence that says this is going to start a bit of a DIY boom, which is a really good thing. So on the line we have Julien Leys. Good morning, Julien.
Hi, Tina.
So, Julien, tell us just a little bit about the practicalities of how this is going to work for your DIY guy who wants to put, say, a woodshed in the backyard.
Yep. So, look, it's going to make it a lot easier for those DIY warriors to get out there and put in a woodshed or a tool shed, that smaller structure, which might be up to 10 metres. This change, though, also means that people who want to build, they call them granny flats,
yep,
that are up to 70 square metres, to get on with those as well. Although with those larger structures, they've also got to use a licensed building professional, which might be a builder or an electrician or drain layer.
Mm-hmm.
It just means they're taking away some of the regulations, so it's going to be faster and easier for people to get underway with any kind of structure in their backyard. But they still have to, go through, notify council of what they're doing. They've got to get a plan approved if it's a larger structure. It just means it's going to speed things up.
Right. And so, I've been in and around councils a wee bit. So what sort of time frame do you think you would expect from the time you lodge an application for, say, a 30-metre granny flat? What's a good time that a council should be able to fling that back at you?
Oh, it's going to be a matter now of days. So the regulations take effect in Q1 of next year.
Yep.
But councils now there's no reason for them to not just simply look at something that's called a Project Information Memorandum, a PIM, look at it quickly, go, yep, okay, we've got the information that we need. That's all good. We can see that someone's got a design. They've given us an idea of what materials they're using. They can go ahead. So it'll be days now as opposed to weeks.
Yeah. At the other end of the scale, I noticed, and tell me whether you're not the right person to talk about this, but I noticed that there's a new thing which is a private building authority that Tony Sewell is in charge of. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tony Sewell was the person who managed property for Ngāi Tahu and is credited basically with a considerable amount of the gains that they made during property under his reign. He's a ruthless bugger, but he's very good. And to me, this was another really good thing, but it didn't, maybe I was away at the time, but has there been much publicity about that? Because that to me seems like a good way to go.
Yeah, that's the first in the country of a private consenting company, so they can do all the consenting for a standalone dwelling, any sort of sized residential home, and they'll do that in days. So it means that there's now more options other than just council. And the government's actually thinking of, again, reforming how we apply for consenting, maybe just having all of that done through only 2 or 3 bodies. So it becomes standardized. It's so there's no inconsistencies between councils in terms of, because some councils at the moment will apply consents differently from a council
Yep.
just down the road. It's crazy.
It was what happened in the
so,
Wairarapa when I was on council. And it's crazy because you're right, we tried to get a joint building authority in the Wairarapa, and I'm telling you that was bloody near impossible, simply because they had different systems that they were operating for the consenting.
Yep.
They had different laws and rules, they had different staff, but we finally got them to at least cohabitate, which helped, and work together. But and the other thing is that I know they were looking at the front end easy peasy stuff could actually be managed very easily. So how far down the track are we getting to that point?
We are quite far down the track, and again, this regulation or this new bill that became law last week is going to go some way toward that as well. Particularly it means that there's going to be much more housing options, right? So for not just grandparents, but it could be students, it could be companies that want to build small accommodation for workers. They can now get on and do this stuff. It's going to increase the pipeline for the builders out there as well. They're expecting roughly 1,000 of these to be constructed. These are the bigger 70 square meter structures per year. So, 30,000 over the next sort of decade. That's going to help the whole sector, the supply chain. It's going to be a bit of a kick that we need.
Yep. And of course, I live in a 10-acre block in the rural area, so we're under the rural regs. And of course, you can build even bigger sheds in the rural area, which is anomalous when you think about it in a way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think they're intending, for the most part, most people will probably be urban dwellers who, and it means also that these structures, a smaller structure, you can build right up. So if it's a 10 metre square tool shed, wood shed, you can build that right up to the boundary. You don't need to be 1 metre back. If it's larger than 10 metres, I think it's a 1 metre back from the boundary, and 30 square metres, 30 to 70 is, I think, 2 metres back. But it's just making it a lot easier for people to utilise their land and get on and, have an alternative dwelling.
Yeah. And of course, I think there's a rule in amongst that says they're not allowed to be too high either. So you can't sort of build a 2-storey, 10 metre shed.
Yeah. There's a number of things in there. I think they've got to be single story. They can't be more than 4 metres in height. The floor can't be a metre above the ground. Yeah. But essentially, it's a big enough dwelling for a small, a family potentially. So this is why Shane Jones is getting behind this as well, because he's been a big proponent of this over the years, which just means for whānau and others, it just gives us more options.
And it's also an added value to a property if you can use the sort of infill type housing thing to build your granny flat on the back. And, and it must be really good from a social perspective too, because if you've got family that haven't got anywhere to stay, that may be older, then you can provide them with a dwelling, which is going to be reasonably easy to be consentable. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. So from an affordability point of view, it's going to go a long way to achieving that. It will have an impact too in terms of, homelessness, because there's just going to be a lot more options now for people that don't necessarily want a standalone expensive house, but they might have whānau or others who can say, hey, look, we've got a smaller dwelling here that's suitable for you. 70 square metres is a decent size. I mean, it's big enough to have even a garage built in it and one or two rooms. So it's a good size. Yeah,
well, we stayed in I suspect one that would meet that criteria in Perth, and there was it was very obviously they have very relaxed rules around, or supportive rules around infill housing, because a lot of the suburbs had these houses that were 3 or 4 up a drive, not necessarily large dwellings, but single story. So you don't get that sort of townhousey type thing. You get more of a low profile dwellings, and you felt like there was a sense of community, I suppose, that was still maintained with those sort of buildings. So I can see it really working here in the same sort of way.
Have you always wanted to visit India, but the hassle of planning and the intensity of group schedules is putting you off? Hi, I'm Craig, owner and tour leader of Maharaja Tours. With 40 years experience travelling India, I curate stress-free luxury tours where you can expect top hotels, easy travel, excellent guides, and delicious food. Visit my website www.maharajatours.co.nz and explore your options for touring incredible India.